We're back to Walk Two Moons with Sharon Creech, and we are to chapter 35 called The Plan. I am anxious to find out what's going to happen, aren't y'all? Okay. All day long, we ate up the road through Montana. I hadn't looked so far on the map, but it was all mountains. We started in the foothills of the Rockies as we left Yellowstone, and all day we climbed up and down. Sometimes the road snaked along the side of a cliff, and the only thing between us and the sharp drop was a piddly railing. Often, as we sailed around a bend, we came face to face with a camping trailer swinging its wide body around the curve. Woo! These roads are a dinger, Gramps said, but he was like a little kid riding a hobby horse. Yeah! Let's get on move, he said, encouraging the car up a hill. Hee-yah! And he said as he swept down the other side. Whew! I felt as if I was torn in two pieces. Half of me was ogling the scenery. I had to admit that it was pretty, as maybe even prettier than Bybanks. Trees and rocks and mountains and rivers and flowers, deer and moose and rabbits. It was amazing country. It was an enormous country. But the other half of me was a quivering pile of jelly. I could see our car bursting through the railing and plunging down the cliff. As we approached each curve, I could see us smashing straight into a truck or even a camper. Every time I saw a bus, I watched it sway. I watched its tires spin dangerously close to the gravel as on the road's edge. I watched it plunge on, eating up the road, defying those curves. Graham sat quietly with her hands folded on her lap. I thought she might sleep, especially since she stayed awake all last night, but she didn't. She wanted to hear about Peavy. So all day long, as I took in the scenery and as I imagined us in 1,000 accidents, and as I prayed underneath it all to any tree whizzing by, I talked about Peavy. I wanted to tell it all today. I wanted it finished. On the day after Mr. Berkway appeared at Phoebe's house and told us about Mr. Cadaver, Phoebe and I put our plan in motion. We were going to track down Sergeant Bickle's son and, according to Phoebe, discover the whereabouts of Phoebe's mother. I wasn't positive that Sergeant Bickle's son was a lunatic, and I wasn't convinced he would lead us to Phoebe's mother, but enough of Phoebe's tales had been transplanted into my mind and my brain so that I was caught up in the plan. Like Phoebe, I was ready to take some action. We could hardly sit still all day at school. Phoebe especially was fired up. She was worried too, and she was afraid that we might not discover her mother alive. And I was beginning to share that same fear. At school, everyone was still buzzing about the journal readings. Everyone wanted to know who wrote about the murder. Alex avoided Mary Lou because of what she had said about his being a pink jerk. And Mary Lou avoided Beth Ann because of what Beth Ann had written about chicken kisses. And Megan and Christy taunted Beth Ann with, "Did you really tell Mary Lou that kisses taste like chicken? Did she really believe you?" And they taunted me with, "Do you really kiss trees? Didn't you know you were supposed to kiss boys?" In English class, everyone badgered Mr. Berkway to finish reading the journal entry that he had started the day before. The one about the Mrs. Corpse and the body. But Mr. Berkway did not read any more journals. Instead, he apologized for hurting people's feelings by reading their private thoughts aloud, and he sent us to the library. There, Ben trailed me. If I looked at the fiction section, he was right beside me. If I moved over to examine the magazines, he was flipping through one of them as well. And once his face made contact with my shoulder, he was definitely trying to plant a kiss on me. I know it. I knew he was, but there was nothing I could do about it. I could not help it. Whenever he aimed his mouth in my direction, my body was already moving away. I needed a little warning. I tried remaining completely still for several consecutive minutes, and during those minutes, I detected Ben leaning slightly towards me several times, and each time, however, he drew back as if someone were controlling him by an invisible thread. Pause the story. these things should not happen in my library at school, okay? This is just so funny between Ben and Sal. Anyway, okay. Back to the story. When the final bell rang, Phoebe and I were out of school like a shot. At Phoebe's house, we examined the telephone directory. We've got to hurry, Phoebe said, before Prudence or my father comes home. There were 6 Bickles listed in the directory. We took turns calling. Each time we asked for Sergeant Bickle. The first 2 people said that we must have the wrong number. The 3rd number we dialed was busy. The 4th had no answer, and the 5th was answered by a woman who said, I don't know no sergeants. The 6th number was answered by an elderly man who must have been really lonely because he talked on and on about once that he knew Sergeant Freeman in the war, but that was back in 1944. And he also knew a Sergeant Bones and a Sergeant Dowdy, but he did not know a Sergeant Bickle. What are we going to do? Phoebe wailed. Prudence going to be home any minute, and we still don't know what's the right Bickle. The busy number was still busy. The previously unanswered one rang, and just as Phoebe was about to hang up, she heard a voice say, hello. Hello, she said. May I speak with Sergeant Bickle, please? There was a pause as she listened. Oh, he's still at work? Phoebe started jumping up and down. Thank you, she said, trying to make her voice sound serious. I'll call later. No message. Thank you. She hung up. Yes. She was hugging me half to death. You'll have to do phase 2 tonight, she said. That night, while my father was over at Margaret's, I phoned the Bickles. I prayed that Sergeant Bickle wouldn't answer, but I was prepared to disguise my voice in case he did. The phone rang. I hung up. I rehearsed my voice and what I would say. I tried again. On the 7th ring, the phone was answered. It was Sergeant Bickle. Hi, my name is Susan Longfellow, I said, and I'm a friend of your son's. I was wondering if I might speak with him. I prayed and prayed that he only had one son. Well, he isn't here. Would you like to leave a message? Do you know when he'll be home? There was a pause. How did you say you know my son? He said. This made me nervous. Well, how do I know your son? Well, that's actually a long story. I mean, the way I know him actually, well, this is a little embarrassing to admit. My hands were sweating so much. I could hardly hang on to the phone. The library. Yeah, that's it. I know him from the library. He loaned me a book, and I've lost the book, and maybe you should just explain this all to him, Sergeant Bickle said. Yes, I should do that. That's what I should do. Well, I wonder why he gave you this phone number, he said. I wonder why he didn't give you his number at school. At school? Actually, the thing is, I think he did give me that number too, but I lost it. You sure lose a lot of things, he said. Would you like his number at school? Yes, I said. Or better yet, maybe you could give me his address and I'll just send him the book. I thought you said you lost the book. Actually, yes, but I'm hoping I'll still find it, I said. Oh, I see. Just give me a minute. There was a muffled pause as he put his hand over the receiver and called, Honey, where's Mike's address? Mike, brilliant. We have a name. I felt like the chief inspector. I felt like I had just discovered the most important clue in the criminal investigation of the century. To top it off, Sergeant Bickle gave me Mike's address. I was sorely tempted to end the conversation by informing Sergeant Bickle that his son was a potential lunatic, but I refrained. I thanked him and I immediately phoned Phoebe. You're brilliant, she said. Tomorrow we'll nail Mike the lunatic. Oh my goodness, this is getting crazy. Oh, look. Okay, chapter 36, The Visit. The next day, Saturday, when Phoebe and I reached the bus stop, Ben was standing there. Oh, Phoebe muttered, Are you waiting for this bus? "Are you going to Channing Falls?" "Yep," he said. "To the university?" "Nope." Ben pushed his hair from his eyes. "There's a hospital there. I'm going to see someone." "So you're taking this bus?" Phoebe said. "Yeah, it's a freebie. I'm taking the bus." "Do you mind?" The three of us sat on the long bench at the back of the bus. Remember, Phoebe is not crazy about Ben. He always calls her Freebie instead of Phoebe. I was in between Phoebe and Ben, and his arm was pressed up against mine. Phoebe said we were visiting an old friend at the university. Each time we rounded a curve, Ben leaned against me, or I leaned against him. "Sorry," he said. "Sorry," I said. At Channing Falls, we stood on the pavement as the bus roared off. "The university's over there," Ben pointed down the road. "See ya." And he walked off in the other direction. "Oh, goodness. Oh, why did Ben have to be on the same bus? It made me very nervous," Phoebe said. It made me nervous too. But for different reasons. Every time I was with him now, my skin tickled and my brain buzzed and my blood romped around as if it was just boiling. Ugh. The address we had for Mike Bickle was a freshman dormitory. It was a 3-story brick building with hundreds of windows. "Oh no," Phoebe wailed. "I thought it might be a little house or something." Students were coming in and out of the building, walking across the lawn, and some were sitting on the grass or benches studying. In the lobby was a reception desk with a handsome young man sitting behind it. "You do it," Phoebe said. "I just can't. I can't." We stood out like pickles in a pea patch. There were all these grown-up college students, and here and there, and then there's us, 2 puny 13-year-old girls. Phoebe said, "Oh, I wish I'd worn something else." She picked lint off of her sweater. I explained to the man at the desk that I was looking for my cousin, Mike Bickle. The young man's smile got really wide and white, and he smiled at me. And he checked a roster, and he said, "You're in the right place, room 209. You can go on up." Phoebe nearly choked. You mean we can just go up to his room?" she asked. "Yeah, sure," said the young man. "Right through there," he gestured. We walked through swinging doors, and Phoebe said, "Really? I'm having a heart attack. I just know it. I can't do it. Let's get out of here." At the end of the hall, we slipped out the exit. What if we knocked on his door, and he opened it and pulled us inside and just slit our throats? She said. Students were milling around on the lawn and looking for an empty bench on which we might sit. And on the far side of the lawn, I saw the backs of 2 people, a young man and an older woman. They were holding hands, and she turned to him and kissed him on his cheek. Phoebe, on the bench was, can you guess? Phoebe's mother. And she was kissing the lunatic on the cheek. Oh my. Oh, wow. We'll stop there. We'll see you next time. Okay, bye.